Shalom and welcome to the Hebrew Woman Show. I am really late today. I hope you all enjoyed your Sabbath and got a lot of rest. I know I did. And I also did a lot of wrestling with some of these topics that we're talking about. And I would say that just reflecting on them myself as a older woman, speaking to not just younger women but women my age, and just I'm always interested in hearing other people's perspectives on their faith walk and what they're experiencing and going through, or any type of revelation that you have. And as always, you are definitely welcome to come and shoot me an email and share if there's a conversation you want to have or a topic you'd like for me to cover. You can always reach me at sister7@gmail.com. That's SISTAH7@gmail.com. So listen, it's always have to give my intro. This is a channel for women, by women. We're here to build a community amongst women, the Women of Titus Foundation, which I set up on a group on Facebook for you to join, to go in there and share your ideas. I just wanted to have that community set up in advance. So once you do start your journey and you discover this channel, you'll have a place where you can go and write out those ideas, because sometimes it's just a matter of sharing it in a space. It makes you feel like somebody sees this and I have to do it, because and it's going to be an accountability space, really. So the purpose of this channel, of course, is for us to explore our biblical principles. One of our primary scriptures that we lead with here is 2 Corinthians 13:5, which says to examine yourselves. Examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how Christ is in you, except you be reprobates. And this is what has had me really doing quite a bit of reflecting, writing, meditating today, and reading. Last week I told you guys that we were going to start over with the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. I don't think I need to sit and play the whole first part all the way up to chapter 9 again, but I will say I personally am going back and listening to it again and reading it and reading through it, highlighting parts in my book that are particular of interest. But I do have the 21 most powerful minutes in a leader's day. I have that queued up for us because I wanted to tell you guys that I think we need to explore the stories that he covers, because just listening, when you start with the book of Samuel, so yeah, you're getting an assignment. You feel like I'm always giving assignments, but I'm just sharing what I'm working on. So it's up to you if you want to join me and participate. But these things are really changing my life, changing my perspective, the level of time and energy that I give certain things. I'm just reconsidering it all, right? And so start with the book of Samuel, and I think what I want to do is either, we'll sort it out as we can, and you could just check the channel and I will play Samuel and go through what I picked up from it based on these 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. So for the law of the lid, he covers Saul and David, in which, if we have time when I get through these slides, we'll discuss it, because there's so much stuff going on. The Drewski situation, people are still talking about Carrie Bryant and her dress, and I just know, and it just really made me think about different scriptures in the Bible, particularly 2 Timothy chapter 3. And when you have a chance, you really need to pull that and really read through it and meditate on it. We're going to cover some of that too, because I really believe like this is what we are looking at. And when I say examine yourself, for me, this all started because I accepted a leadership position. And then so I realized that I needed to grow when I went to my first class, that I was offered in leadership, and I found it inadequate. And so I was like, I'm going to have to do more. And so that's when I started stumbling across the John Maxwell videos. And then next thing you know, I ended up with the John Maxwell books. And from there, one of the guys that was teaching the class was Maxwell certified. When he said it the first time I went to one of his classes, I didn't catch it. I didn't pay it any attention. But that's a wonderful thing about the Most High. When he wants to use something to assist you in your growth, it will keep coming up. And so that just kept coming up. And then so the second class that I went to, and he said it, I was like, I'm reading this book, and it was just like, it's funny how we hear things and we tune them out. And just saying that makes me think of how many times am I given gems and I overlook them, not purposefully, not intentionally, just because mentally I'm not there yet. So, and I think that happens to us a lot. But once those seeds get planted, the Most High will bring the fruit. So, as always, we lead with Titus 2:1, because the purpose of this channel is we're striving to be women of Titus. Titus 2:1 tells us that we are to, it says, but speak thou things which become sound doctrine, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience, and the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to too much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their husbands, that the word of God not be blasphemed. And so we're really going to have a conversation about this, because when we look at these mega church situations and you see the response from the people who are supposed to be following the Bible, y'all hate this God. Y'all hate the God of that Bible. And so here's the thing, and I need you all to start paying attention to what you're looking at and what you are hearing. When you are hearing people who are leading and in the church say things like, there's not a manual for that, or that's just your interpretation. Well, I'm not interpreting anything. I'm reading what's right here in black and white. If the dog walked down the street, I'm not going to hear, I don't want to hear you talk about, well, that's just your interpretation. What the dog could have been scooting down. I'm not doing all that with you. Either you believe the book or you don't. I don't care if you think it's allegorical, metaphorical, whatever your issue is, that's going to be on you. And I personally, as a person who believes in the Bible from the beginning to the end, I don't feel the need to argue and fight about the Bible. I think in when you get new in the faith or whatever, you're new in your journey, spiritual journey, you're ready, as my husband liked to say, he used to take out his sword and he was ready to cut everybody. But I think as you grow older, you really realize why that is one of the scriptures, not to get involved in these contentious arguments and discussions, because really they don't lead to anything, because revelation comes when a person is ready. You're not going to convince anybody to do anything, and you're not going to talk anybody into God. So Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law is happy. I want to be happy. I want to be obedient. I want to be within the will of God. So I want to establish and build my own vision, and not my own vision, but what is God's vision for me, for my life, for my family. And I want to make sure that I'm in alignment with that. Here we are to train ourselves to think biblically and not emotionally. I always say that does not mean that you are some type of automaton and you don't have any emotions, but it does mean that we have to slow down. And this is where, if you're following me on Facebook, you'll see me posting things like the power of the pause. I'm the person who opens up the book, the package, and I'm not reading the instructions. I want to go ahead and use the device. I am not a blue person. The blue personality types, they're very analytical. They're going to take their time. They're going to read the instructions. I'm red. I'm going to go. And so that is something that, like Saul, which he brings up in the book, Saul was impatient. He didn't want to wait. He didn't want to wait for Samuel to come and do the dedication. He did it himself. And that's one of the things, that is why Saul kept having issues, because he wanted to do it his way. Oh, Sinatra asked, just want to did it my way. We can't do it our way. We have to do it God's way. And that is one of the reasons why it is important for you to gather around yourself people who are going to tell you no, people who are going to tell you when you're tripping. Proverbs 11:14 says, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in a multitude of counselors, there is safety. There is safety in counsel. And you need to work on developing your counsel. And I have a hack for that. If you're having trouble building your counsel and you want to be around people who are doing the same thing, first of all, the Women of Titus Foundation group on Facebook is going to be a great place for you all to join. You are going to have to send an email to join. I do not just let anybody in. We're vetting people because I feel like that should be a space where you can come and share what you need to share and also get wise counsel. So you're not going to take advice or listen to just anybody talk, and we want to know who's in the group, okay? So that there is always that. Proverbs 19:20 says, hear counsel and receive instruction, that thou may be wise in thy latter end. There's no fool like an old fool, and I don't want to be an old fool. So I'm on a journey to keep growing, to keep changing, and that is my whole purpose here. That's the whole purpose of this whole endeavor, and it's just to share that with you, because I always felt like older women just didn't really tell the truth about their struggles, because we are in a time where you just have to pretend you know everything. You have to pretend you just got it. And listen, I've been on this planet for 48 years. There are definitely things that I can say, yeah, I know that. I knew it, but now I have a different level of knowing. And you can't say, because listen, how many times have you read a scripture, you understood it at the time, and it may have even been a revelation to you at the time, but as you grow spiritually, it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's with all things. When it comes to relationships, I love that song, The Heart of the Matter by Don Henley, because the part where he says, the more I know, the less I understand, and all the things I thought I figured out, I have to learn again. That's exactly where I'm at in life. It's like you think you know something, but the longer you live, it just becomes clearer. And I can honestly say, like, I do a hostile work environment series on the Working Class Chronicles. And a lot of the conversation I have on there, it comes from personal experience. And I also had to take a look at, because, when I think about most workplaces that I've experienced, I'm not going to say everything about work is, because you're dealing with people. No job has been perfect. But I think about some of the things that I have gotten involved in. And it is, especially the disputes, right? They are things that, had I read the 48 Laws of Power at the time instead of rejecting it, I would have understood what I was looking at. And so I was recently watching an interview with Robert Greene, and he was talking about how nobody is meant to, he didn't write the book for people to live these laws. He was like, actually, anybody that actually attempts to live the 48 Laws of Power, they're going to be miserable and they're going to be alone, and nobody's going to like them, because a lot of the tactics are very that people deploy from the book. They're very toxic. And I would say not knowing is what gets a lot of people in trouble, because if we listen to what we're told and we're taught, well, most people are genuinely good people. I hear people, Joe Scarborough says that mess all the time. Most people are good people and they're going to do the right thing. That's not what the Bible says. And then this is to show you the paradox, right? Just to show you the cognitive dissonance that goes on with the world. That's why the Bible convicts the world the way that it does, because the world is in total contradiction to the Bible. The Bible tells you that only a remnant is going to get it. It says wide is the path and many will go that way, but that narrow gate, very few are going to find and travel that path. I'm looking for that path, and I hope you're looking too. And so that's just something to really consider. The majority of what you're looking at, it's not right. And so until you get that, if you keep believing the propaganda, most people will genuinely do the right thing if given the chance. No, they won't. I see people lie about nothing. They lie about nothing. So to have this expectation or to even teach your children this lie that most people are good people is complete and utter bullshit. And it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve me, and it certainly doesn't help us when we're navigating this world. That might sound toxic. That's not toxic, that's reality. And let me tell you something. I was just telling my having a conversation, and I was talking about that movie The Labyrinth when I was a kid. I watched that movie so many times, and just watching some scenes from it, I kept thinking about how she kept saying this isn't fair, because when I got in my situation, I felt like that I was in that mode. This isn't right. This is unrighteous. This is unethical. This is wrong. Always all these things about what it is, right? And how it's not fair, basically, without saying it's not fair. Sarah kept saying it's not fair, it's not fair. And at one point, the Goblin King looks at her and he's like, you say that often. I wonder what your point of reference is. That's it. Like, what is your point of reference when we're talking about fairness? Because here's the thing that the clarity needs to come on. While you may be operating from a biblical perspective, somebody else is operating from a Machiavellian perspective. Somebody else is actually using the 48 laws of power as their Bible. So you know what that means? That means we need to examine that. And so that's what we are going to do. We're going to do war as well. So Proverbs 28 and 26 says, he that trusteth in his own heart is a fool, but whoso walketh wisely shall be delivered. You can't just lean on your own understanding. You're going to have to test. You're going to have to try the spirit. You're going to have to try your own spirit, because you're not going, and this is where your counsel comes in. If you don't have anybody to talk to, let me tell you something. And hopefully if you don't have help, listen, there are more than ways to skin a cat. And I hate it. I used to hate it when people would sit up and say, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. Anytime somebody would have a conversation, it just got that ridiculous. And the person telling people to go to therapy as if they're healed and I've done the shadow work, but I'm listening to you talk. You haven't done anything. And y'all have to excuse my language today, because I am on one, as my father affectionately calls me, the cuss in Hebrew. Sometimes I'm just there. I'm just there. I'm telling you. So 1 John 4:1 says, beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Everywhere you go, these people are lying. These pastors in these churches. And you guys, I'm going to do a Drewski show later. Wait till I show you all some of these videos from these mega churches. It's just going to blow your mind. I could not believe some of the things that I saw. As a matter of fact, I just have to pull up this one for you guys, because, baby, when I tell you that they are clowning in these churches, they are clowning. And if you think any of this is godly, you need to have your head examined, because if this is not okay, look at this. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Look at this. And then for people to be upset at Drewski like he just did something out of control. Somebody made this funny, but look, like these people, if this not self-glorification, if this is not man worship, these are churches. And there's one, and I'll show you guys. I have it on the other slide. They have a baptism pool. Do you hear me? Where they got they got synchronized swimmers in the baptism pool. When I tell you, it is complete buffoonery and foolishness. I just cannot. So let me get back to my slide, because there's a couple things I'm going to cover here. And look, I'm already 19 minutes in. But back to my point about getting counseling. If you don't have the money, they have free counseling. Here's the key to finding a good counselor. Just like finding a good friend, you vet these people. If you go to a counseling session and you and that person don't have chemistry, you don't click, go again, find a different one. And yes, it could. Hey, seeking you shall find. It is a journey. There are apps for that. You can even go through the apps and scroll through the therapists and pick one. Sometimes people can look at people and tell if they're going to be a match for them, but you really don't know until you get to talking to a person. I think that it is important that if you don't have the social network, that you start to build it. I do think anybody that if you're serious about your health, you're going to find you a good physician. You're going to find you a good psychiatrist because listen, your brain health is not just about taking medicine and being crazy. If you have autoimmune issues, if you have some other things going on cognitively, get the type of physician that you need. If you're having trouble with your diet, go see a nutritionist. Whatever is ailing you, if you have a bad tooth, you're going to go to the dentist. Like, we have really got to get in the season where we're taking better care of our health all around. And I'm really just starting to get a better understanding of that you need to take care of yourself holistically. And if counseling isn't your jam, I'll say this: I love journaling. It is a way for me to get all that angst, all that frustration out, and just say what I need to say. But there are also, listen, 12-step groups. There's a 12-step group for everything. There are Dharma groups. There are meditation and writing groups. There are even some sessions on Clubhouse. Join a book club. But my overall point is get outside and start getting around people and building your counsel. You guys know I'm a strong proponent of going to leadership seminars and sessions. Get out here, start mingling. Join your local chamber of commerce. Join the library. Go to some of the events. Join the art museum. Go to some of the events. You have to get out, because if you don't, you can end up isolating your way, especially isolating yourself in a way that is unhealthy. Particularly as I'm looking at all this content about how people are lonely, social media is ruining people's lives, and even though they're online talking to people all day, they still feel alone. It is because you are not outside and you're not connecting with people. So you need to change that. And listen, I don't knock people going to church, because if you find like-minded people at church, fine. All I'm saying is examine your pastor, try his spirit, and see if the behavior that you see in the church does it match what scripture says. Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. You can't get better if you are around dumb people. Yeah, I said it. You can't be around a dummy and think you're going to grow. And when I say a dummy, I'm talking about somebody that's not trying to improve their life, somebody that's always doing things that are landing them in situations where you are in a situation with them, or you're having to attempt to bail them out. Listen, I'm not super save a hoe. I'm not trying to save everybody. I don't have the time or the inclination. I'm all for helping people. I'm all for doing service and supporting, but some people just need to be left to find their own way, and they're not going to find it if you keep saving them. So what I was really stuck at today, I was sitting here thinking about where I was when I started this. We started with the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. And now we're on the 21 irrefutable laws. I had to, when we got to law number 9, I realized I needed to circle back, because when I think about raising my lid, I was like, at this point, has it risen? I can say absolutely that it has, because one of the things that I realized is that I was still holding on to the idea of, back to the labyrinth issue, what's right is going to win. And just like she had to learn, the labyrinth is a coming of age movie. She had to realize that, yeah, It's not fair. And we should do a Labyrinth watch party, because I was watching. I didn't even realize that so many people and forums were doing just different like breakdowns and conversations about this movie I watched as a kid growing up. But now looking at it, Jim Henson made a lot of points in there that just really, you as an adult going back looking at it, it's like, wow, exactly. You know, I can. People are always pretending that they want to help, that they mean to help, and a lot of times it's just self interest, seeking self interest. They are aligning with you because, and this is, I'm telling you, this may sound cynical, but you really need to try the spirit. And this is not me trying to scare you. This is telling you to beware. Because if you think about Shanquilla Robinson, all the people, she paid for those people to go on that trip with her, and they killed that girl. You think about, and that's an extreme case. But you think about some of your coworkers who you have watched plot, plan, and do different things to different people, sometimes even their own family members. You and your family members, you have some treachery in your family, you have some treachery around you, because it's just human nature. So the whole purpose is not for you to point fingers at anyone else. It is for you to examine yourself so you can see what role you're playing in it. Because that's where the part Sarah had to get right. You got to grow up. And you can only focus on your locus of control. What can you change? She can't change the labyrinth. She couldn't change Jared. She could only change her mind. So if you think about it, it even has a biblical perspective in that you get results through the renewing of your mind. One of the greatest things for me has been the implementation of the Jade method. Once I realized that I was going about my whole situation wrong, and I will say not even just at work, I will say with even sometimes with family, right? People are always trying to gaslight you. Even with some of these conversations online and some of these forums, you can't have legitimate conversations with people because somebody's always trying to gaslight you or goad you into a silly conversation. Just like with Corey Holcomb and Antoine Daniels. That's foolishness, right? But the point is to goad you, to get you to have those reactions. And so when we're talking about a hostile work environment, that goading, that's what they do on those jobs. They need you to react. And my people, we're emotional. And I know I definitely be, especially if you coming at me with some mess, I feel like I gotta correct it right there. But I had to learn that was just that outrage, that moral outrage. I am one of those people, right? Nobody cares. I was so animated and so upset, and nobody cares. And I really did foolishly believe that doing the right thing would yield results. Now, am I saying do the wrong thing? No. What I'm saying is you do the right thing, but you use the Jade method to do it. No, whenever I would be accused of something, right? Wherever, and it's not just at work. It could be anybody accusing me of something, and it's still something I work on, right? Automatically go into justifying, arguing, defending, explaining. And what is it get? Like that saying is true. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, because the more you give them, the more they weaponize. You know what? I'll send you an email and just go on about your business. Stop arguing with these people. Stop talking to these people, because that's the whole purpose, is to get you off your square, to get you upset, to get you arguing. Anton knew what he said was going to provoke Corey, and it did. It absolutely did. But that's purposeful. A lot of times people come to your show, they come on your platform, people come to your house, people come around you. And a lot of times, hopefully you're around people who genuinely come because they want to be with you, they like you. But in certain situations, this is where that spirit of discernment comes in. Is this person here to see me, or do they have an agenda? And then you just watch the show. Just slow down. That's another thing. And COVID had showed me that too. It was funny to watch the world stop because you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything, and you had no choice but to slow down. And I always try to remind myself to get back to that space where, why are you in a hurry? You know how somebody will ask you a question and you feel like you have to answer on the spot because we don't want to be dumb. We don't want to be looked at as dumb. You want to respond immediately. Cut that shit out. What are you doing it for? They don't care, especially let's just say you are in a toxic work environment. They don't care if you have the right answers. They don't care if you know or not. Their whole thing is to see if they can get you to say something that they can weaponize later. Your answer is, I don't feel comfortable answering that right now. I need to think about that. I need to sleep on that. Let me get back to you. I'll send you an email. You don't ever have to answer a question on the spot. Because if somebody's trying to force you to give an answer, and first of all, if the question discombobulates you, it's different if you know the answer and it's something you don't have a problem with explaining. But if it's one of those gotcha moments, and you know what I'm talking about, because a lot of people like to play gotcha games. When someone starts engaging you with gotcha games, shut up. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. I'll send it to you in an email. It's just that simple. So getting there, I say for me, have me reflecting back to, did my lid raise? Yeah, and here's the thing. You're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to be perfect. People are going to provoke you. But here's the thing. Even when that does happen, you got to learn how to balance it. But the point overall is, you're just going to have to grow up and understand what you're dealing with. Understand the terrain that you're fighting on. And then that goes back to the law of navigation, law number 4. That's why I like these laws, because they make sense for me. So I had to hit this because, I felt like I would be remiss not to talk about some of this situation with the Jamal Bryant situation, or I would say the Carrie Bryant situation, and her in that dress. This is why we lead with the Titus. But I'm going to add 2 Timothy 3:6-7 to our regular slide, because this is what I see now. And this is what I feel like goes on in the church. We got 2 types of women. You got these silly women, and you're going to have a Titus 2 women. Now, these girls in this club situation, the selfies, the posing and stuff, you can literally, if you go to Carrie Bryant's page right now on Instagram, you'll see her doing all these selfies. You'll see her showing pictures of her back shots. She wants you to see her butt. Listen, I got it. You paid a lot of money at that BBL and you want it to be seen. This person is auditioning for a reality show. This is not real. This is not, when the behavior looks like the silly women's behavior, and they're supposed to be women of Titus, you need to wake up and examine yourself. And then you have to ask yourself, where are you on your walk? And I think one of the most important questions you need to just go ahead and have with yourself. Stop lying to yourself and wasting your time and everybody else's. Do you believe in that Bible or not? Because if you believe in that Bible, this image here, silly women versus women of Titus, it doesn't work. You got dresses like this, your thighs, your legs, your breasts, all that out, you know damn well this is not godly apparel. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 6-7, this verse says, for this is the sort they are which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. You got your behind in church every Sunday. Every time them church doors open, there you go. Anytime there's a convention, anytime there's type of seminar, there you go. You go there. You there. You are all this learning, but you don't have any knowledge. You don't apply any of it. You just what are you doing? And you're carried away by diverse lusts. You're easily influenced. You chase every new thing. Your appearance is your priority. And attention. How much attention can you get? That's why you can't even go sit down and eat dinner without taking a bunch of pictures of your food. So this picture here to me just really exemplifies what that looks like. When you can't tell the difference between a woman of God and a Hollywood starlet, it is a problem. These people, this is not like y'all can say whatever you want, but just like I know, this is not what it is. That's not what it looks like. And this is why these are your leaders. And this is why we go back to Paul saying that these false teachers leave captive those silly women. They lead captive people away laden with sins, and you're led away to various lusts. This is what you see right here. So you're going to have to pick a struggle. You're going to have to decide, where do you stand. You're going to have to decide, like, you don't suffer from a moral dilemma, okay? First lady or first to fall? And are you going to fall with her? That's what you need to ask. That's what you need to look at. You understand the difference between right and wrong. You understand what that book says, and you don't suffer from a moral dilemma. This is a leadership issue. Whether they like it or not, her sitting on Tamron Hall saying, I just happened to fall in love with a priest. No, that's not how that works. You took on a role. When you agreed to be that man's wife, and that goes with any man, when you agreed to be this man's wife, you are agreeing to be his helpmate. That means you are agreeing to become part of his life and his mission. And that being said, you don't get to play with people like this. Well, I can be worldly because I don't, I just happen to fall. I didn't plan on being a first lady. This is just what happened. I just felt no. And the fact that you all are sitting, letting her play in y'all face like that, it just tells me you just are still lying to yourself about your belief in the Bible. The Bible is problematic in a lot of ways for a lot of people because you can't get over the fact that those people lived the way they did, right? But you keep forgetting that the world was a very different place then. Most of those men in leadership, whether you like it or not, in the Bible, had multiple wives. Women have always outnumbered men, and a woman alone was a woman in danger. And some would argue that's still the case now, especially in a lot of places in the world. But whether you like the way the people lived or not, that's not the purpose of the Bible. The Bible is literally life's instruction manual, and you can get so many lessons on how to live your life. And when we go through Samuel, you'll just see, just coming in the door, the lessons that Samuel offers. We haven't even got to David and Saul yet, right? So I will say this. When you look at this picture, and we're talking about being women of Titus here, you have to ask yourself, is this woman, a silly woman, being led away by lust and attention? And everybody's sitting there, I'm just sitting at Tamron Hall applauding her, like, yay, this is, yeah. No. I'm not going to sit here and agree with it and act like it's okay and you can wear what you want, because you can't. And so for you, women in leadership, women in the ministry, so a church being teachers of women, you're going to have to ask yourself, what are you teaching? Every woman in leadership needs to ask herself, what am I teaching the next generation? Am I teaching them that godliness means being set apart? Or am I teaching them that you can go and look like you are one of the real housewives of Atlanta? That's what you're going to have to ask yourself. Am I teaching modesty and discretion? If modesty and discretion are not part of your curriculum, you're not teaching from the Bible. Okay? The body positivity you can be positive about your body and be covered. You can look nice and be attractive, as you can see in this image here, and be attractive. Titus 2:3-5, that the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness. And you need to also wear that mantle. You need to not just say you play the part, you need to look like the part. Okay? So listen, we're already 40 minutes in, and I know kind of went on a tangent there about some things, but those are some things that I wanted to talk about, because when I tell you all that I was wrestling with some things today, I was really wrestling because I'm just reflecting on where has the growth come from, what does it look like, and how do I want to go moving forward. And so I do have, let me see if I have them up here. And don't forget, we have our Women of Titus daily sheets that you can use to help you, with your prompts and your exercises. Where these are our books for the week. We didn't get to listen to it today, so I'll tell you what. Tomorrow I will come on here because I don't have to work tomorrow, Sunday, and we will listen to the first part of the 21 most powerful minutes of the day, because we're going to pick up on Samuel. So be ready to listen to Samuel tomorrow, and we'll talk about, and we'll listen to the first part of the first exercise. Think on these things. That's your second book. And the reason why you don't say, like, oh, you got all these books for a week. These are literally just daily reflections. Just like if you had one of those little daily meditation books, they're just daily reflections. They do not even take that long to read, because these are things you're going to want to think on. That's why it says think on these things. But these are the books where we're headed. When we talk about, when we actually have our law of the lid discussion from the Saul and David perspective, we are going to talk about, we're coupling this with the 48 laws of power. Because do you know what the law of power is going to go with this first session? The law of the lid: never outshine the master. Now, Saul knew already that he had already been told that he had lost the kingdom. But that didn't stop him from engaging in the behavior that he engaged in. David, because there are certain situations, and this is why I think the 48 laws of power are interesting, right? Never outshine the master. I can say in my situation, I did it and I didn't realize I was doing it. So we need to have a conversation about that. I just activated a Patreon. I'm going to put that up, or we'll put it on members too. But there are certain conversations that I'm going to have on Patreon. And I can tell you how I broke that first law and how that impacted me and the law of the lid. The law of the lid, David outshined the master, and he wasn't even trying to. Sometimes you are just going to be naturally more charismatic. Sometimes you're just going to be naturally powerful. You're going to be a natural leader. And if you are in a vicinity or you work for someone who is not, you're going to have issues. And we're going to talk about, is that something that you can even mitigate? If you're interested in participating in that conversation, as always, you want to be on the panel? Email me at sister7@gmail.com. I look forward to talking to you ladies later. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. Shalom, and I hope you enjoyed your Sabbath. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Join the movement, guys, and also subscribe to the Working Class Chronicles, because when it comes to workplace, hostile work environments, toxic work environments, you cannot win alone. But collectively, we can win. Shalom.